Hey YouTube, Petey Grizz here. Got a couple of knives to talk about today. First, I wanted to start off by showing off my golfer, which I've already done a video on this knife. It's been other videos, but I wanted to change the scales on it since I sent it to Victorinox, and they had put brand new scales on it anyway, so it wasn't like they were original. So I decided I didn't decide what color it was, so I just ordered scales in every color that was available. And interesting enough, there was the seller's located in Ukraine. I'm sure some of you have dealt with him. He sells a bunch of Swiss Army related knives and parts on eBay, and I hope he's safe out there. But in light of that, I finally got around to changing the scales, and I figured, why not make them blue and yellow like the Ukrainian flag? I think the colors look great together, and not like it's a big deal or something, but I just thought it was a good color combination. And since they came from the Ukraine originally, I just figured it's meant to be. So moving on, the main topic for today is Electricians knives from Victorinox, and I have two examples today. The first one I'm going to show is what would be their basic electrician model, and this is the Electronics Electrician. It's based on the Pioneer or the Soldier, basically the same thing. It's a 93 millimeter model, aluminum scales. This is what they call the Old Cross version. I think this was from the 70s to the early 90s. They did these crosses and then later changed it over to their shield. Has a brass liner in the center, interestingly enough, being made of aluminum. I think that's just kind of interesting. Even got a brass spacer in there. But so the features of this are a big chunky blade. These have a thicker blade stock than the 91 millimeter models. Yeah, the blade is just a touch longer, but it's noticeably thicker when you compare them side by side. You see, I have one right here. Give me a second to get it out. Of course, it has to make a bunch of noise. Here's a Swiss Champ, and as you can see, the blade stock is considerably thicker on the Soldier Pioneer knives. Anyway, aside from the main blade, it has not that yet, here it is, a reamer, which I'm not a big fan of this style of reamer. I like the traditional three-sided reamer they had up until about 1961, and I don't mind the concealed reamer in the Celador knives, but this reamer's like the same style that's on a lot of camp and scout knives and stuff. I mean, it works fine enough. It's just not my favorite configuration. I don't really like this big overhanging part, which I realize is part of the reaming function, but the edge is dulled because it's what you use to get it out with your fingers. And it works. I really like this. I just happen to have this nearby. This style reamer. I love how it just blends in nearly seamlessly with the handle. I just think they're beautiful, and considering it's a pretty simple tool that it does its job either way, I'd choose the aesthetical aspects of that one over this one. Enough about that little thing. So it's got a bottle opener screwdriver with the wire stripping notch. Interestingly enough, they don't have the sharpened edge in here. That would just seem to be an obvious thing to put on an electrician's knife, but I just guess they're not going to make the special modification just to these parts for this knife. It does have a half stop, which I just noticed. Most of my knives are from before 85 or so, and I don't know if that corresponds with the Alox knives or not, but I know they didn't always have a half stop, so that's something. Alox knives really aren't of too much interest to me and aren't really my area of expertise. Not that I'm an expert of anything, but it's just my knowledge is lacking on Alox knives. And here's the coup de grace, the Electrician's blade. And as someone who was an electrician for almost 20 years, and I loved doing the work, this blade will work fine for, it's not it's a chisel grind, which means it's only sharpened from one side. This one somebody's touched up a little bit. That might be, but basically it's a chisel grind. Chisel grind means rather than sharpening both edges, just one edge is sharpened down to meet the other edge. So basically the blade is flat, plain. If you were able to set this blade flat on the table, the edge would be touching the table and not lifted off of it a little bit. It has this circular groove in it, which takes the place of what they could have, they used to do on the can openers by having a sharpened groove in the can opener. But that is for stripping, copper cables, stripping the insulation off the cables. The knife part generally would be used more for slitting the jacket that is over top of a cable that has multiple conductors inside of it. So it doesn't need to be particularly sharp, and you often will find these aren't very sharp. They come pretty sharp in the factory, but nowhere near as sharp as like a standard blade, because there's just no need for it. And by not being brought to a fine razor's edge, it makes them a little more durable. The truth is, most electricians just use like your basic utility knife or any variation of that, because they're just sharper and the blades are cheap. You just replace the blade every time they're done. And I would say 90% of electricians use utility knives. The first guy I worked for as an apprentice, he used an old electrician's knife, not one of these, but like the TL29 style electrician's knife. And it was funny because the thing would get dull and I'd watch him kind of struggling with it and hand him my utility knife, and he'd get kind of pissed off about that. So I thought that was funny. But moving on, the other electrician knife I have is the 84mm Electrician. Now this wasn't really called an electrician. It was a part of a series, I believe, called the Tech Line or Technician series for Radio Shack, which consisted of 2 knives. This is the more common one. This is an 84mm model, very simple model. It just has a blade. This has the stamp with the crossbow and Officer Suisse, and the electrician's blade. So it's the same blade. It's nearly as long as that one, but it is much thinner because it replaces where a clip blade or combo opener would go. So it's not as thick as the other one, which replaces the can opener, which is almost twice as thick as that. And it has a Phillips screwdriver. I just bumped my phone, so that's going to look terrible. But the Phillips screwdriver is an interesting choice on a knife geared towards electricians. I mean, a lot of terminals on electrical devices do allow Phillips, but many of them are combination heads that are basically designed for flathead, Phillips, and a square Robertson bit driver to access. And if you were just like replacing outlets in a house or something like that, many times going to replace the old ones, they only have a flat edge screws, and the new ones will have the combination tip. So you're going to need a flat driver anyway. It's interesting that they didn't find a way to include a bottle opener with a screwdriver or something else on it. But it's cool having the Phillips driver. I mean, if I was really going to use this knife in my daily uses, the truth is it would just sit open and go into a little leather sheath on my belt, and I wouldn't even get closed. It would just sit in there like this, and I probably wouldn't use much else of it. So I think it was more just a feature just to add for the sake of adding it. I almost would have preferred the knife just to have the blades like a Bantam version and not have that. I do think it's pretty cool though. I think it would be really cool to have a knife with just the combo opener and the flatheads. You'd have a blade, a bottle and can opener, a flathead, and the Phillips. That would be a really cool configuration. It has tweezers. I don't know. I don't think people need to see tweezers in every video. And a toothpick, which I don't think I've ever used them as a toothpick. I do find they work great for all kinds of other stuff. I often use them. I'll put like I'll use them to help get some cotton or something into a knife when I'm trying to clean it up and stuff like that. But, you know, they're not very durable, so they just fall apart. But I'm rambling, so let me wrap this video up. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Leave any comments with suggestions for videos you want me to do. I'm working on a couple that people have asked for, so I'll try to keep them up. I'm also trying to get a microphone because I think my voice sounds terrible recorded through this phone. I think the footage is okay. I got to get a light because as you can see, there's like a shadow in this area. But as I've said before, I am in a wheelchair. It's just a pain in the ass for me to get around. So this is the best spot for me to shoot the videos. So I got to figure out how I can fit a lamp into my desk scheme because it's pretty busy just outside of the screen where you can't see. Anyway, that's enough of that. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. PD Grizz out.